Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of Bold Caribbean. I'm your host, Malika Critchlow, and today we're going to read some Papa Bois stories from the Caribbean folklore book, Mouth Open Story Jump Out by Grace Hallworth. Hope everybody had a great week. I know there's been some worldly events. Remember, try to think about good things and send good thoughts of peace and harmony if you can. If so inclined. Okay, I'm trying to find it. Papa Bois. Papa Bois, or Maître Bois, as he's sometimes called, is the father of the forest and protector of wildlife. People who live near forests, hunters and woodsmen, have many stories to tell about this legendary figure. This story does not have a name or a title. Oh, let me have a few things. There are three stories. I think we probably get through one or two today. I'm not gonna do three. I mean, technically, we could do three. Let's see how I feel. Okay, so let's get cracking. A hunter had been tracking Lap, a wild animal, which is much sought after because of its delicious taste. He had been hunting it for 2 days, and each time he thought he had trapped it, it gave him the slip. About noon on the third day, he met an elderly man with thick gray hair, a long unkempt beard, and piercing black eyes. His body was as hairy as an animal's, and his only garment was a pair of faded khaki shorts. A horn made of bamboo was attached to his waistband. Bonjour, compere. How goes the hunting today? Inquired the old man. Bonjour, replied the hunter. Not so good, old man. I sighted a lap 2 days ago, and no matter how I try, I can't corner that animal. Let it be, man. Hunt something else. You will never catch a lap this season, said the old man. Oh, like you know something that the rest of us don't know, sneered the hunter. Reckon I do, rejoined the old man. But tell me, do you think that you can match the instinct of that animal? Speak plain, old man. I have no time for riddles, said the hunter, who was getting angry. And I, young man, have all the time in the world, retorted the old man. And he turned on his heel and walked away before the hunter could think of a reply. The hunter shrugged his shoulders and dismissed the old man's comments. He decided that the old man probably lived in the forest and had lost his reasoning powers from living alone for so long. He continued to track the lap, and he followed its trail into the depths of the forest. He came to a place where the trees were so tall that you could see their crowns, where the trees grew so close together that their trunks formed a gigantic corral. The hunter walked along this wall of trees and suddenly came upon an opening about the width of two men standing abreast. He entered and found himself in another world, a world so silent that he could hear his own heartbeats. The atmosphere was cool and fresh, and not a breath of wind disturbed the stillness within the cavern of trees. There was just enough light to cast shadows, and the hunter thought he saw the figure of someone in the shadows. Hello, is anyone here? He called. Yes, I am here, came a reply from someone quite near to him, and he recognized the voice as that of the old man he had met earlier that day. I see you did not take my advice to leave the lap alone, said the old man. But since you are determined, come with me. The old man led the way to a darkened cabin full of animals. The hunter could just make out the forms of manikou, agouti, wild pigs, and wild cats, deer, and birds of all kinds, as well as dozens of lap. Some of the lap were wounded, and others were heavy and with young. You wanted that lap? Okay, go ahead and find it, said the old man. The hunter had long regretted his rash action in entering the strange cabin. He now realized that the old man was none other than Papa Bois, and that he would have to use all his wits to escape the grave danger he faced. In the poor light, it was difficult to identify the lap which he had only seen at a distance. Then he remembered that more than once he had caught the scent of hog plums on the trail. He remembered too that hog plums were in season, and that he had indeed passed plum trees with several of the fruit on the ground. He reasoned that if the lap had passed that way, it might have eaten some of the plums. Again and again, he went the rounds of animals, stopping frequently to sniff out the odors that came from them. He was on the point of giving up when he caught a whiff, which was undoubtedly the smell of hog plum. He stopped and looked carefully at some animals in a corner. An animal was cowering far back in the group, and when he picked it up, it was wet with perspiration. He turned to Papa Boy and said, "This is the lap I was hunting, but I no longer wish to harm her, for I see that she is about to give birth." And he set the animal loose again. "And now, compere hunter, perhaps you begin to understand our conversation this morning, but you must be tired after your long hunt. Come and rest a while I bring you some refreshment," said Papa Boy. The hunter followed the old man, who led him to a lighter part of the cabin. In it was a table from the mahogany tree, and on the table was a woven basket filled with fresh and sweet-smelling fruit. Around the table were seats of cane and bamboo, and seats which were shaped in coils and seemed to be made of animal skin. The old man motioned to the hunter to sit on one of the coil seats, and he was about to do so when he thought he saw a swift flick of red at the base of the seat. Carefully, he felt one of the coils and found it warm to the touch. He moved away quickly and said, "If you don't mind, Papa Boy, I would rather have a cane seat." Papa Boy had been watching the hunter closely and saw that he had not been fooled by the snake's coil to look like stools. Good, compere hunter. You learn fast, and I see that with a little guidance, you should make an excellent woodsman. But now you deserve a fine dinner and a good night's rest." In no time, Papa Boy had cooked and served up a vegetable soup and prepared a bed of fresh rushes from the river for the hunter to sleep on. But the hunter did not go to sleep at once. In the stories told about Papa Boy, there was one fact that was often repeated. As long as the old man gave his word, he could be trusted. But until then, a person had to be on his guard at all times. He had heard terrible tales about people who had crossed the old man and ended up bewitched with wild animals and bewitched into wild animals themselves. The hunter noticed how often Papa Boy stroked his beautiful bamboo horn, and he noted where he rested it at night. The following morning, when Papa Boy awoke and he looked for his horn, it was not to be found. He went to the room where the hunter was sleeping and shook him awake. "Is this how you repay me for my hospitality?" he asked the hunter. "Where have you hidden my horn?" "Papa Boy, your horn is of no use to me," said the hunter, "but I know that you value it highly, and you may have it back as soon as you promise me my freedom." "I will not be threatened, and I will find my horn," said Papa Boy. "Look, Papa Boy, I have learned my lesson, and I assure you I shall not cross your path again. Why don't you agree to my freedom? You'll never guess where the horn is hidden." Papa Boy would not give in, and the hunter began to think that he would never see the world outside again. But 2 days later, after Papa Boy had looked everywhere, well, almost everywhere, he agreed to let the hunter go and gave his word on it. In fact, it wasn't hidden at all, but there for all the world to see. The hunter had unscrewed one of the bamboo joints on a seat and replaced it with the horn, which, unless you looked hard, appeared to be just another bamboo joint of a stool. Of course, the hunter kept his word. He hunts no more in the forest, but he collects snakeskins and runs a thriving business making coiled snakeskin seats. So he learned a lesson. Poor Lap, he was trying to kill him. Okay, let's read another story. This one is called A Strange Hunting. One Friday, 3 men from the city arrived in a small village and asked for someone to act as a hunting guide. They had heard that there was good game in the nearby forest. The villagers hemmed and hawed and said that they had to speak to Joseph, the head of the village. When he arrived, the men were so impressed by his confident manner that they agreed to hire him immediately. Joseph asked no payment except that the hunters leave for the villagers a third of whatever they shot. Late that evening, the hunting party set off. It was clear from the onset that Joseph was completely at home in the forest, and the men following him did not doubt that their dogs would be filled with game by morning. That their bags, why I say dogs, that their bags would be filled with game by morning. But they caught nothing that night or next day, and by evening, two of them were all for returning to the village. But the third man said, "Look, fellows, in for a penny, in for a pound. Let us wait one more night, and who knows, but that our luck might change." They kept watch through the night. Nothing stirred. Just before dawn, the three men decided that they had had enough of waiting. When Joseph saw that they were determined to leave, he said, "Ignore that this forest is teeming with game. Wait a little longer, and I will find some deer and send them in your direction." The hunters were not keen to spend any more time in the cold, dark forest, but they agreed to wait for a few more hours. Before Joseph left, he said to them, "There's just one thing I must warn you about. When you see the herd, there will be a big deer leading. Let him go. If you shoot him, you will never hunt in this forest again." The hunters did not have long to wait. Suddenly, a flock of birds took flight, and soon after, the men heard the sound of hooves. A large herd of deer came into sight, and leading them was a huge stag with antlers which were beautifully sculptured lines and curves. One of the hunters said, "In a whole lifetime, I'll never see a beast like that. Joseph can't be serious." And pulling the trigger of his gun, he shot the deer. It leapt in the air and uttered a scream that sounded human. Almost at once, the entire herd disappeared. The hunters set off in pursuit and followed a trail of blood until they came to a fortress of trees and vines. They attacked it with cutlasses, but no matter how they slashed away, they could not penetrate it. One of them said, "I don't know about you two, but I'm getting out of this place. There's something funny about the whole affair." The others agreed at once, but they too were feeling uneasy. They walked for a long time, but it was not until late afternoon that they found landmarks which led them out of the forest back into the village. It was nearly dusk when they arrived at the village square, and a crowd of people was standing about. One old man came up to the men and asked, "What did you do to Joseph?" "You mean he came back here without us?" said one of the hunters. "Where is he?" "Yes, he came back," replied the old man. "And no thanks to you either. He lost so much blood that it's a wonder he got as far as the village. We had to lift him and carry him to the doctor." "But how is he hurt?" persisted the hunters. "We haven't seen him since early this morning." "Who shot him in the right shoulder then?" demanded the old man angrily. "The three of them got guns, and Joseph don't have a gun to his name. The three of you got guns, and Joseph don't have a gun to his name." "Listen, man, we didn't shoot anybody," began the hunter. But even as he was saying the words, a thought came into his head. His eyes widened with the shock of understanding. "Oh my God," he whispered, "not." The old man nodded his head. "Now you understand. Well, take my advice and leave before it is too late. The people in this village love Joseph, and I wouldn't like to see the three of you hurt. So go now." The men wasted no time in taking their leave. None of them has hunted in that or any other forest for fear of meeting Papa Bois, whom they had wounded that day. Hmm. There's one more story. I don't know if I should leave it for today or if I should I do another day? Let's read it. Mary Hildo. One day, a hunter called Mary Hildo was hunting wild hog in the forest when an old man greeted him. Young man, give me your arm and walk me a little way. Mary Hildo gave his arm to the old man and they set out together. But Mary Hildo was a cautious fellow, and as he walked, he reasoned to himself, now what is such an old man going so deep in the forest? And I don't know, should that not be not why is such an old man going so deep in the forest? Oh no, sorry, I read it wrong. Now, what is such an old man doing so deep in the forest? He looked at the old man and saw that he had neither gun nor bag or game, but he saw a horn hanging from his belt. Good old, thought Hildo, it's Papa Boy himself that is holding me tight. Hildo walked soft, and he didn't say a word or give a look that would betray that he knew who his companion was. He just waited to see what Papa Boy would do. After they had walked for about a mile and a half, they came to a large wooden house. Papa Bois took out a giant-sized key and opened the door. Inside the house was every kind of animal, bird, reptile, but not one of them showed any fear or interest in Mary Hildo. Then Papa Bois led the hunter to a beautiful room in which were three of the prettiest girls Hildo had ever seen. These were Papa Bois' daughters. Oh, sit down, young man, said Papa Boy. It's not often that I have visitors, and my daughters long for company. I would consider it an honor to be their friend, that is, if you have no objection, sir, said Hildo. At that moment, he could think only of the beauty of the girls. All in good time, said Papa Boy softly. We will sup first and then talk about such matters. What is your favorite dish? Now, there was nothing Hildo loved more than roasted wild hog, but he wasn't fool enough to say so to Papa Boy. He replied, well, I like a good fish stew. Fine, said Papa Boy. The girls will prepare something tasty for you in no time at all. And so it seemed to Hildo. He had barely settled himself in his chair before the girls came bustling in with steaming dishes, which they placed on the table before him. There were dishes of fish cooked in ways which teased his nostrils and made his mouth water. He could barely wait to be served. At last, Hildo's appetite was satisfied, and the dishes were empty. And now, said Papa Boy, let us talk about you. About me? Queried Hildo apprehensively. What about me? No need to be so fearful, said Papa Boy. Did you not offer friendship to my daughters a little while ago? Oh, yes, sir, replied Hilda eagerly. He was relieved that it was no more than that. Well, continued Papa Boy, how would you like to marry one of my daughters? Mary Hilda's mouth opened to utter an oath, but he caught it in time. He was well aware of Papa Boy's cunning, and he knew there was more to this offer than met the eye. He pretended to be flattered. Papa, yo! Exclaimed Hilda. I never expected to have such good fortune. Give me some time to make up my mind. Don't take too long, my friend. I'll give you half an hour, said Papa Bois, and he left the room. Mary Hilda was in a fine pickle. If he refused the offer, his life was not worth a penny. Besides, it made no difference which daughter was chosen. He would be an idiot to turn his back on a beautiful wife and a good cook into the bargain. He came to a decision. What is your choice? Inquired Papa Boy when he returned after the half hour was up. I will choose your youngest daughter for my bride, said Hildo. He hoped that the youngest would also be the least experienced in the magic arts. Mary Hildo knew that his mortal soul was in danger and that he would have to remain alert to survive the night. Papa Boy would use his daughter to bring about Hildo's downfall. But why? That night, the daughter he had chosen as wife practiced every wile she knew on the hunter to lull him to sleep, but he kept himself awake by silently reciting prayers. He must not relax for one moment. Eventually, the girl fell asleep, and Hilda only closed his eyes when he heard her even breathing. And he rose at dawn and waited to see what would happen next. The two older sisters were standing outside his room when he opened the door in response to their knocking. It was clear from the look of surprise on their faces that it was not Hilda they had expected. Is everything well with our little sister? They asked. Everything is well with your sister, Hilda replied shortly and closed the door. He looked at the girl who was now awake. She looked back at him with large, lovely dark eyes, and he realized that he wanted her for his true wife, no matter what. He put his arms around her and he spoke gently to her. Tell me truly if you want to be my wife and leave your father's house, he asked. Yes, she replied. Take me away with you. I will be a good wife to you. If you are speaking the truth, you will have to help me outsmart your father, said Hilda. The girl looked sideways and did not reply, but Hilda persisted. Why does your father wish to harm me? I have never offended him. It is true that he will harm you if he can't, she admitted reluctantly. Some months ago, you killed one of his favorite pets. It was a hog which he had taken from its mother as she lay dying in the forest, and my father nursed it as if it was his own child. He is still angry with you. But how can he blame me for that? Hunting is my work, and I have to work to live, protested Hilda. Never mind, said the girl. I will help you escape the punishment which my father has planned for you. Listen carefully to what I say. You must put on your shirt on the wrong side and turn your hat inside out. You must take everything my father gives you with your left hand. You must leave the house walking backwards and close the door as you leave, even though you close me inside the house. But how do I know that he will allow you to come to me if I shut you in? Asked Mary Hilda. You must trust me, replied the girl. And you must not look back until you have crossed the bridge over the stream yonder. Mary Hilda followed the girl's instructions to the letter. The hardest part was leaving her inside the house. When he was outside, he took the path straight in front of him and followed it until he came to a mountain stream with such clear water that he could see the smallest stone at the bottom. He was tempted to look behind him, but he remembered his promise to the girl. Even when he heard a loud splash in the stream, he still did not look back until he was on the far side of the bridge. As he did so, he saw the girl he had chosen as wife standing right behind him, and she looked lovelier than ever. What was it that made the loud splash in the stream? Hilda asked. My father knew that I had helped you, so he inflicted on me the punishment he intended for you. When you left, he changed me into a wild hog. But as long as you kept your promise until I crossed the stream and was washed by the cleansing water, I was safe. I knew that the water would change me back into human form. My father was also testing you to see if you are a man who can be relied on. We shall now be both forgiven. So Mary Hilda married Papa Boi's daughter, but he never told anyone except his mother who his wife really was. Hilda himself never hunted again. He and his wife joined forces to run a hospital service for animals. And that is the end of the Papa Boy series. We got 3 stories in Papa Boy, which is kind of cool. I don't know what else we will do. We did the ones. Next week we can do a little spirits. Let's see. Maybe we can do a little spirits next week, I think. Anyway, so that's it for today and our series of folklore series that we are continuing. I hope everyone's well and have a great weekend and a great week until we meet again next Saturday. Bye from Folk Caribbean. Have a great time, guys. A great week.